And I think there's this tendency to kind of just extrapolate all of that onto Japan and think like, oh, like this is what it's like over there, wanting to like, I just really wanted to understand that stuff and like, I just wanted to know more about it. It's not something that I can really like consciously express, but it was just something that kind of hooked me a little bit.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the KoreKara Podcast. This week we talked to Ben, who has been previously interviewed by Matt vs. Japan on his channel. So we catch up with Ben and talk about how he actually met Matt, some of his personal experiences while living in Japan, as well as some of the struggles he faced while grinding Japanese. So if you guys enjoyed the podcast, be sure to check out our Patreon where we have bonus clips, which includes this podcast. Also, we're really trying to get to a new milestone in subscribers on YouTube, so it'd really help us out a lot if you guys can subscribe. So, hope you guys enjoy. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the KoreKara Podcast. My name is Raza, and I'm joined by my co-host, Eric. We talk to people of all types of background about their lives in Japan, studying Japanese, or even tips and tricks on how to learn the language. This week, we're joined by a very special guest in Ben.
Yeah, so Ben was actually interviewed on Matt vs. Japan's channel a couple of years ago into studying with the all Japanese, all time method. And in that interview, he talks about going hardcore in high school and college. And in this interview, we want to sort of catch up with him to see how his progress has been. And he was actually able to make it over there to Japan and use his Japanese. So we also want to get some insight to how his experience was outputting and making Japanese friends. But first, Ben, can you give us a short introduction of who you are and where you're at today?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ben. And I appeared on Matt vs. Japan's channel about like 2.5 years ago. And I've been studying Japanese, I guess, on and off for, I think, almost 7 years now, to be honest with you. It was like early 2014, I think, when I first got into it. And I think that the discovery of the possibility that I was interested in studying Japanese was perhaps even a little bit before that. I think it was in 2013 when a friend and I stayed after school, and we were talking to one of his old math teachers, and I don't know why, but Japanese just somehow happened to come up in the conversation. And I think subconsciously I was just like, that sounds kind of cool, because it was also a fellow Asian American, so I think she was wondering if we spoke Japanese, and one of my friends was just like, yeah, I want to learn it. And something kind of clicked with me. I'm just like, yeah, this is kind of cool. Like a few months later, I don't know why, but I guess like it just started like hitting me, because I think certain things from Japan were part of my childhood, like I guess Pokemon, and eventually when I was in high school, I got into that whole like anime trend, just watching some stuff, and I don't know, it just kind of came to me. So I basically just started off doing typical stuff like hiragana and katakana, and that took me a little while. I was just doing that. It wasn't even like with proper stroke orders. It was just basically just remember just remember the basic shapes, and I'd be writing that during lunch, just sitting at the table doing this. And
When did you discover AJATT?
I think I discovered AJATT like shortly after I got into Japanese. I found out about Tikyo Sam and some other videos that were on there. Also, if you guys are familiar with another of Matt's friends, his name is Patrick. He had some old update videos, and I think they were not so old at the time. They were just a couple of years old, and I watched a couple of those, and he mentioned AJATT. And I also did come across I think I came across the website, and since Tikyo-san pitched it, I definitely saw it like within a few months of discovering, just being interested in studying Japanese. So yeah, it was there from the very beginning pretty much.
Also, I think I remember Matt saying that you're of Chinese descent, right? So did you speak any Chinese before you started to learn Japanese?
Right, so my mom is actually Vietnamese and my dad is Chinese. So
I see.
only one of my parents speaks Chinese, and he did kind of try to like force it down my throat when I was a kid. He would have my sister and I just like sit at the table and like write a bunch of kanji and stuff, and like use those like workbooks and CDs, but it didn't really end up with me getting anywhere. So it's like I knew some very basic words in Chinese, and when I first started to study Japanese kanji, I maybe knew like 1 to 10 or something, but no, nothing significant. And I don't speak or understand a word Chinese today. So
so
yeah.
basically like no advantage of that in Japanese.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, you never know. Maybe there could have been something subconsciously because I wasn't totally foreign to the concept of kanji. I don't know, but as far as I'm aware, no.
Right. Missing out on the step 1 learn Chinese, step 2 learn Japanese.
Yeah.
Well, I guess like going into like how did you and Matt meet?
Yeah, so I didn't meet Matt until like a year or so after I got into studying Japanese by myself. All right, so yeah, so anyways, basically like the basic timeline before I met Matt was I got into Japanese because a friend and I were kind of discussing it and it just came up, and he was like an anime fan. I found out about some stuff, blah blah blah, and then so I just decided one day like screw it, I'm just gonna get into it. So I just started doing it, looked up some stuff on the internet. I think my dad actually kind of conventionally studied Japanese before too, because I have an older sister who in 8th grade was like watching Naruto and probably just went down that trend as well. So she started studying it, pretty shortly, and then pretty shortly after just kind of stopped. But so he told me to start off with hiragana katakana. I'm just like, all right, sure. So I went online, just kind of just try to remember the stuff. It was just like the sound syllables and whatever. So within like I don't even know, like a week or couple of weeks, I kind of knew how to write them just very generally. The stroke orders were probably wrong and they probably looked really butchered if I ever had a chance to see them now. But back then that's what I would do. I saw some videos like on, what was it, on Japanese Pod 101, just, basic greetings, things like that. I just, kind of delved into that. I would write it down. But at the time I was kind of serious about it. I just didn't have like a direction or any kind of like, anything to like concrete to really follow. It was not like a consistent thing. It was just like whenever I felt I could do it, I didn't really have a plan. Or whenever I felt like doing it, or whenever something came up that I felt I could use, I would just try it out.
Did you think about taking classes?
No, at the time it didn't occur to me. It was basically just a very new thing I was experimenting around with. So I just like got my dad's old Genki book. I looked through that a little bit. I had that same friend was interested in learning, so we kind of just went into it, and a little bit, like we stayed after school a little bit just to like, try to remember some of the stuff. And because he watched anime, he kind of knew some of the stuff in the book, and I was just like pronouncing everything so just disgustingly wrong. But basically, that would happen for a little bit, but then after a while, I ran out of stuff to study consistently. So I'm just like, okay, well, what do I do now?
Right.
And then I started watching more videos on the internet. Basically, just found Patrick's old video about how he finished RTK, and I'm just like, this is a really young kid, and he's like, he knows how to write all this stuff from, like, by heart. So there could be something to this. And also, I watched Abroad in Japan's video about how to like learn kanji like the fun way or something, and it's still up right now, and it has like over 1 million views. But at the time, it wasn't so popular actually. And I watched it, and when he talked about it, it really made sense a lot. And he also talked about the SRS in another video, and I just thought the entire concept was really fascinating because like these were things I'd never heard of before, and it seemed very logical and practical. Like you can lengthen the life of a memory by just recalling it just barely before you forget it, and this thing takes care of you and everything. So I was like super hyped to get into that. And so I basically just downloaded a version of Heisig's Remembering the Kanji 1 off the internet, and just got a pre-made deck off of just the Anki website, and I basically started doing that just to see if it would work. I wasn't aware of what to do after or anything like that, but I figured like, okay, the first step is just to get the kanji memorized because I know hiragana and katakana. So I would do that, and after the first 2 days, that's when everything really started to kind of like I guess the snowball effect of motivation just started to pick up, because after 2 days, I was like, okay, I'm going to see if this works, just to see if I can like pour my entire time into this or not, like if it's worth doing or not. So I tried it out. I did like 20 kanji the first 2 days each, and after the second day, I'm just like, wait, I can actually write all this stuff from memory and like recall what it means. So I was like super excited because everyone talks about kanji and how it's very difficult to memorize. And usually when you ask people how they learn it, they say they like rote memorize it or something, and they learn it in order of like importance and not breaking down the basic radicals. But this method was really, it kind of struck with me. I'm like, this kind of works for me. So after seeing that, I just started doing it more and more. And after like a few days, it was like, oh, I know like 100 kanji now. And then like a few weeks later, I know like 300 now. And like I would be watching a bunch of random Japanese videos on the internet, and I would like every few days I would be noticing like I recognized more characters. And I think because that was like the initial phase, it just kept building up more and more, and I had so much motivation to continue because it felt like I was getting somewhere, you know.
Right.
So I did that for a little. I did that for a little over 3.5 months, I believe, and I never missed a day because I was so motivated. Even over the summer, I basically cut everyone off because I just wanted to finish the book. So I would do that all the way. Like sometimes it would take like 2 to like probably upwards of 5 hours a day just to draw the character, like draw the stories out and do all the reviews. And I was like super careful not to miss a day, not to miss any reps, and if I screwed up a kanji, I would be really careful to like make sure I paid attention to how many strokes it had and whether or not I was doing it correctly, and all that stuff. I was just super passionate about it at the time. And I finished that, and I was just like, okay, well, after I'm done with this, I'm just gonna like just start a basic textbook. So I got into Genki. I got a bunch of pre-made decks on the internet, which I talked about in the interview was not exactly a very smart move because I spent a lot of time just memorizing a bunch of stuff that I had no contextual connection to. And so it basically ended up screwing me over for like a year or so. I think after that I spent maybe another year, or probably another like 7 or 8 months at that time before I met Matt. And I was realizing after 7 or 8 months just doing this, memorizing just any number of vocabulary words a day and just looking at these sentences, just trying to memorize them and just going along with them, that I was just pretty much getting nowhere. And I'm just like, why the hell is this not like like getting me anywhere? I'm spending hours a day just memorizing stuff, and it was frustrating. I'm like, why am I not understanding anything? And I would turn on like one of my favorite shows, and I would understand like nothing after like hours and hours of basically just grinding my ass away. And I'm just like what's going on here? And then like I would still be watching like Japanese related stuff in the library at school. Like I would just have, I don't know, like an iPod Touch or something, and I would just be scrolling through things, just watching. And I found some other AJATT related videos, and one of them was Matt's, I think. And this is a really long and convoluted answer as to how I met Matt, but just wanted to give some context. So yeah, at the time, obviously it didn't like strike me because he had like 60 subscribers at the time. Like his channel was just like a very small and unknown channel. But he had some videos up about AJATT and like some other videos of him like reading things or like voicing over like a psychopath thing. And I'm just like, well, he understands all this stuff, and I was like, I want to be where like whatever he's doing, I want to know what he's doing because he obviously is getting somewhere with his studies and he obviously knows what he's doing. So, and he also had a video about how to like, I think he was talking about sentence mining and things of that nature. And because I'd known about AJATT for a while, I already knew about this, but I didn't know how to do it properly. And so I would comment on his videos occasionally on one of my old YouTube accounts and just asking questions and things of that nature. And I think like, I don't know, maybe because Matt didn't have very many followers at the time, he probably noticed me consistently popping up asking questions because I just wanted to know what he was doing and like whether or not I was, if there was something screwed up with what I was doing studying wise. So that continued, and I think over the summer of 2015, I would still be doing my study the messed up way because I was just like, I'd rather be doing some study than no study.
Right.
But eventually like Matt was just like, yeah, if you have any, like if you actually want to know more about this, you can add me on Skype and I'll explain everything to you. I'm like, sure. So at the time I was really excited to talk to him because I was like I guess subconsciously I kind of knew that if I followed what he was going to tell me to do, I would actually finally break through and get the kind of results I wanted to. And so he basically talked to me on Skype, and I met him that way. And because at the time the AJATT community was very small, I think, we just kept in touch over line and stuff. He would just tell me, okay, just throw away all that pre-made shit and, just start. What did he say? Okay, so just throw it away. Just go through the AJATT website. Just read all this stuff, and then do Take Him's grammar guide or something. Just some basic grammar guide, and then just start to sentence mine. Or something of that nature. This was a long time ago, and I really don't remember what happened. Yeah. So that's basically what I did.
Yeah.
I basically deleted everything and just read through the website, which was kind of a mess. I got to be honest. Like Katsumoto's writing style and stuff like that was not exactly the easiest thing to follow. But at the time, I was just like, dude, this is pure genius. Just because like Katsumoto was just somebody everyone looked up to. I'm just like, no, this is genius. I'm gonna read through it all anyway. And so that's pretty much what I did. I read through it. I was always very dedicated about it. It was just balls to the wall. I just wanted to understand stuff. I think in hindsight, it was mostly because of just anime kind of related things. I think it's something a lot of people who are listening to this may relate to, I guess. But that was in high school, so yeah. So I did take hymns in like a month, and then after that, I just started to kind of listen to it all the time. Just listen to Japanese passively, like 24 hours a day, as he called it. And because I was a high schooler, this kind of stuff was possible. I think as you get older, this kind of stuff just sounds a little bit more, I guess, unreasonable and outlandish. But to a high schooler with all the time in the world, I'm just like, yeah, sure. I just listen to Japanese all the time. So just anything that I was kind of interested in, I would download off the internet and rip the audio files. And a lot of the stuff I learned was through Matt's channel, including subs to SRS and like making a playlist of your things, chopping them up and just like looping them. And that's basically what I would do. I started off doing that. I just took off, and I think at the time I still didn't really know what the hell I was doing when it came to sentence mining. So I would just be taking sentences, even if they had like 3 or 4, maybe even 5 words I didn't know, just because they were from something I wanted to understand. I would just look them up, and I would just make a bunch of cards. But repping became a chore, and I basically just stopped for a little bit. And then after that, I decided to get serious about it, and then I started again, just really just powering through it near the end of 2015. And once I finally started to get my foot in the door a little bit, things started to become a little bit less, or like a little bit more comprehensible. That's when I started to kind of pick up again, because it didn't require as much effort to do it, but the results were also there because you kind of, you had all this knowledge that was, already like attached to you. So learning more was not as hard anymore. So once I got to that part, it was a little bit easier to manage. And that's when I started to get really addicted to it. Like, that's when I did it all the time.
So how did you feel about your Japanese, like when Matt interviewed you?
So at that time, I'd say reading was probably my very best ability because that's what I did most of, And also, when it comes to reading, I think it's just a lot easier to do than speaking or something like that because you can take time to figure things out, right? And you can also follow things even if you don't necessarily know every single word. So I don't know exactly how good I was at the time because sometimes when you self-evaluate, it tends to be inflated, right? But I could read a lot of the stuff I wanted to at that point, and it was also getting to a point at that point where I was also, I guess you could say, struggling a little bit to find things I was interested in actually reading. It wasn't necessarily that I couldn't find more words and stuff like that to learn. There were plenty of words if I looked for them, right? But I was also at that point kind of already burning out, I guess you could say. Like, there were things that like I had to read, but I was like, I kind of had to like force myself to do it a little bit.
So at that point, what year were you? You were in college, right?
Yeah, I was in college at the time. I think that was the beginning of 2018. I would have been a sophomore at that point. So
I see. So did you think about like when you graduated, were you gonna try to go to Japan somehow?
To be honest with you, like when I was 18 years old and like all I cared about was just studying Japanese, I just wanted to like go to Japan right after high school. I didn't even want to go to college. I just wanted to like somehow get over there and just do whatever. In hindsight, it was kind of nonsensical to think this, but yeah, at the time I was just really wanted to see what it was like over there. So I was kind of in college because I felt like I had to be, and not because I wanted to be.
And so I guess like out of high school, then you graduate and you have this kind of dream of just going to Japan and kind of laying it all out there, do you kind of have like maybe a plan in mind on how you could, or like even factoring college, like how you would get there?
Um, so I think really the only thing I learned about was I think like on the internet, a lot of people who J vloggers and people who go around Japan, a lot of what they do is like English teaching. So I thought that was going to be how I was going to get over there.
Right.
So like I always thought that's what I would be doing over there. I never had any actual concrete idea aside from like I don't know, Chet or like something else. I always thought it was going to be something like that. Tikio Sam, I think he was like teaching English when he was over there. Abroad in Japan also came over there on the Jet program, I think. And so that's basically what I thought it was going to be. Just like the typical gaijin experience, just go to Japan and like I don't know, teach English. That's what I thought it would be. And at the time, I didn't care. I was just interested in Japanese, so I just wanted to be there, because I figured like, oh, this is like the language I'm interested in. Like the only people who use this are Japanese people, so eventually you kind of want to put that, you kind of want to like utilize what you're learning. You don't just want to sit in your room and just grind away when you can't have any practical usage for it. Like your friends don't speak it or anything like that. So yeah,
so eventually, how did you decide to go over there?
So what ended up happening was basically, I don't even know. Like basically, I ended up switching to like I was undecided in college for a long time because I just like all I did was just sit in my room and study Japanese and
Like
go to class for the and go to classes that I had to take for like I guess it was like core requirements, and it took like 2 full years to do those anyway.
Yeah.
Like back in college they make you take like what was it like natural sciences and like history and stuff like that.
All the general education classes.
Yeah, basically the shit you have to take, but you don't remember anything about later.
The classic,
kind of yeah. And so basically that's what I did for the first 2 years, and in between that, I was just doing Japanese because I didn't really know what else I would be doing when I was over there. Because I did mention to you, I didn't even know what I wanted to do after high school. I just wanted to like go to Japan, I guess. But I don't know. So I would just like end up changing my major to something related to Japanese. I think it was like East Asian languages and cultures because you had to like study a language between Chinese, Korean, and Japanese. And because I'm like, well, I've been studying Japanese, by myself for X amount of years now, so I might as well just make something out of it and just just go back to school and like get credit for the stuff that I probably should know by now. So that's what I ended up doing because I thought. It's kind of like what Matt said in his 3-hour video. I'm just gonna do Japanese because it was easy. So, or so I thought because the language classes were not so much of a problem, but you also have to take a lot of other stuff like cultural stuff, things about like poetry and just stuff that in general I wasn't really interested in. So it turned out to be a little bit more troublesome than I thought it would be. But in between that, one of my teachers, she would talk about this one program that the school offered, which was like a trip to Fukui because my university had a tie with Fukui since like it dated back like 150 years ago or something of that nature.
Oh wow, that's a real connection right there.
Yeah, there was like a historical connection, but at the time, by that time, I think it was like when did this happen? So I got that opportunity in 2019, like the beginning of 2019. So
okay,
like February or.
Was that like a study abroad program?
Yeah, it was a study abroad program, yeah. And at that time, I'm like, well, I've still never been to Japan. So when this opportunity came up, I'm like, yeah, maybe I should just like, I don't know. I guess it wasn't something that came from like a conscious place. I feel like subconsciously I just went up and asked my teacher about it after class and just like, hey, like, what's this program about, And she would ask me, she was like, just come join the program, like we don't have too many people who are interested in going. So I was like, yeah, maybe. So I went to the general meeting and they did have some requirements for like certain aspects of the program. So there were two branches of the program, I think, which was one which was like you could take English classes there. The other one was you could take classes like you could take Japanese classes with the other people, with the like Japanese students at the university, or English ones if you wanted, but you had to have like JLPT N2 for that. So my teacher asked me, like, do you have that? I'm just like, yeah, I passed JLPT N1 like a year ago. And she was like, yeah, so just come to the meeting and talk about it. And so I ended up going, basically. Like, I talked to people in the department, and I ended up going. And I never really knew why though. I think it was just because I wanted to kind of see what it was, what I was spending all this time for, and maybe if I had a future in Japan, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So how long was that experience?
So that lasted from September of 2019 to like I think it's about a year. So September 2019, I came back just like 2 months ago. So a little bit over a year.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's a pretty
Yeah.
comprehensive program. So kind of like culminating your journey here. So you started learning Japanese in 2014, kind of had a series of ups and downs, met Matt versus Japan back before he hit 60K subscribers, more of the 60 subscriber kind of guy.
Oh
And
yeah,
we
man.
kind of built your way through college, and now you're finally going towards a program where you can finally visit Japan itself. So
Yeah.
I guess what was your first impression of kind of going to Japan, and how did it feel like right when you came off the plane?
Right. So I think I was kind of, well, not kind of. I was really excited to be abroad by myself for the first time, I think.
Uh-huh.
Like when I stepped off the plane, well, even before I made it to Japan, I think when I was in Hong Kong for the layover, it was like a 6 hour layover. I was really like
Oh wow.
excited because it
Yeah.
was like, you're just in like a big airport by yourself. And if you haven't traveled by yourself before, I think I think people tend to feel that way. I just got off the plane. I'm just like, wow, this is kind of cool. It was like, yes, I have my freedom for the first time.
Hmm.
My parents aren't with me. I'm just walking around, and so that was really fun. And it was also kind of scary too because, um, you have to like I had to ask people for directions and things of that nature to make sure I was getting on the right train. And yeah, and that was also kind of a little bit nerve wracking, I guess you could say, because um, I didn't have a plan B if I got onto the wrong train or something like that. So I needed to make sure like everything was just heading in the right direction, and I was actually going to get off at the stop I had to get off at because I had to stop at a hotel like until like the next day where people would come and drive us to the
The school,
drive
the
us to the
dorm.
university. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, to the school dorms. So like that would happen the next day. And so when I touched down, I had to spend a night at a hotel. And I'm like, well, shit, am I gonna get there like in one piece because my phone like wasn't working,
Uh-huh.
didn't have any service, and also like I was starting to have to use like the train systems, which I had never used before, especially like not in Japan. I didn't know how to like get the tickets, so I had to
Hmm.
ask people. And so I think there was also like an element of fear when I first came there because I'm just like there's so many things that could go wrong.
Hmm.
I could just get lost and then I could get off at the wrong stop. And also I was incredibly tired, so I had to like set an alarm on the train to make sure like during the 2 hours I didn't sleep past the stop because I
Uh-huh.
wouldn't know what to do if I'd actually like missed the stop.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, so I guess it was just like excitement and fear, man. I don't know.
Uh-huh. So I guess you finally made it to the dorm in one piece after getting to
Yeah.
the hotel, staying the night. Somehow
Somehow,
you made
yeah.
it. You made it.
Somehow, man.
It happened. Now I guess kind of dipping your feet into like living in Japan for the first couple of months. Kind of how did you feel? Did you maybe experience any culture shocks kind of like differently from America?
There were a couple of things I wasn't expecting. For example, like everyone talks about how food is so healthy in Japan, but like you go to the konbinis and it's like a bunch of like heatable things and like a lot of fried food all over the place, and that was something I found kind of interesting
Oh
because I'm like,
yeah.
oh, you know, like I thought everything was healthy. And I think there are like healthy foods, but a lot of it is like fried stuff, and that was something that kind of shocked me because most of the time, like what I would eat would be like, I don't know, those bentos, those heatable ones that you get from the like the 7-Elevens and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And you like and due to the nature of how a lot of people are busy, I do believe a lot of people eat that stuff. So I was kind of shocked to find that out because I just somehow thought that a lot of the food would be is very healthy for you, and I think some of it would be. I definitely think some of it was like healthy for you, but that was something that was just kind of odd. I was like, oh, you know,
Yeah, yeah. I feel like the healthy nature of the food kind of comes a lot from a lot of like the home cooked food that you usually see.
Yeah.
But like, yeah,
yeah,
once you go to the konbinis, it gets kind of, it gets kind of
yeah, just like
strays away from
onigiris and
that.
like
Yeah.
yeah, and like heatable spaghetti and like like burritos and stuff like that. And Yeah, just like a bunch of sandwiches and bags and things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
would say though, like the sandwiches and bags and stuff, like at least those are like freshly made and whatnot. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, definitely like a step up from like convenience stores like everywhere else. To be honest, I don't think
Yeah.
I've had quite the same
yeah.
experience anywhere else. But yeah, no, definitely.
Did you get any chance to interact with Japanese people and make Japanese friends?
Yeah, actually, I think it was something that came kind of natural because a lot of the people in my class, like the international class, were very, were kind of open and yeah, like some people even introduced themselves to me. So like we all like just went to like go eat stuff and just talked about stuff. And again, since a lot of the people in the international class were foreigners as well, like I mean everyone, sorry about that, but yeah, like I mean, everyone, almost everyone there like spoke English, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like there was no barrier there. It's not like we all had to communicate in Japanese, although sometimes we would too,
Right.
right? Like in class, we sometimes, and these people were also in my classes as well,
Hmm.
right? Because a lot of the students on the program were also in Program B, which is like the program where you could take the classes with Japanese people, and so a lot of them also just like we were in the same classes, not only for the Japanese classes, but also for like the classes, the typical general classes for Japanese people at the university. So I would have plenty of chances to see them there. And, the dorm that we had, um, Japanese people would often go there as well, like just to socialize and stuff like that. So I think it was all like circumstantial. Because if it was just me and like just me and Japanese people, I feel it would have been considerably more difficult to make friends. But because we had everybody else mixed in, it's like you could become acquainted with people,
Hmm.
in like just through knowing other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also when we came to the school, we were all assigned a tutor,
Okay.
a Japanese tutor who like basically would help us around if we had any questions. We would get their contact information online, and they would also help us fill out the forms, like the insurance forms, and
Uh huh.
help us go deliver those, and that was really helpful.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes like my tutor, like I still talk to my tutor. She was a nice person, so like that. I guess she was like my first friend there, but also
Uh
like
huh.
because of my tutor, I also met other people through my tutor.
Hmm.
Um, there was also an orientation like welcoming party for everyone where we got to know where we got to talk to each other. Japanese people were there too,
Right.
like to welcome us. So we all had a chance to talk, and just because of like people knowing people who also know like other people, it was not very difficult to become acquainted with people at all.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I guess that's kind of fortunate.
No, that's really good to hear. Like we've heard like everything from like horror stories to like really good experiences. So it's really
No, we'll get to that later. We'll get to
there's
that
some
stuff.
horror stories here.
Well, horror story. Yeah, I mean, we got some interesting stuff to talk about. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I
So,
mean, I'm kind of interested here, Ben. So is the horror story kind of pertaining to like a social experience?
yeah.
So I guess while we're on the topic here, I kind of you want to walk us through kind of what happened and how it was a horror story specifically.
It was just something kind of like that kind of made me question like what's going on here, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
that was when I took a trip to Kyoto,
Okay, okay.
and so there was this place called Kiyomizu-dera, which is like
Hmm.
it's like
The
a place
famous
that you just
temple.
go. Yeah, it's like a famous temple. So I was trying to go there, and like I think that day it was closed already,
Hmm.
and so I was on my way back, and it took a while to get up there. Like I had to go like bike up.
Oh, you took the
You know,
biking route? Oh man.
yeah, I had to bike up some
Oh
incredibly
man.
steep hills just to get there, and it was raining that day and all that stuff. So like it was just an adventure getting up there.
Uh-huh.
But then like when I got up there, I found it was closed, and I parked my bike somewhere. Okay, so that's just the start of this whole thing. I parked my bike somewhere,
All right.
and I forgot where it was,
Okay.
and it's like my phone was also running out of battery here, and we were like 5 kilometers, if not more, away from my hotel. So there was no way of me getting back
Okay.
if my phone ran out of battery. So what ended up happening was it became nighttime,
Uh-huh.
and again, as I was starting to leave the place, I realized I didn't know where I put my bike. So I had to go look for, and it wasn't even my bike. It was a hotel rental, which means I was
Oh.
going to have to pay for it if I got it lost. So I was renting this bike, and obviously I was not going to come back without it. So I started looking for it kind of frantically,
Hmm.
and I realized like shit, I got no battery left on my phone, and if I lose my phone, I'm going to have to like literally I'm not going to know what to do to get back because it's so far away and I don't even remember like the name of the hotel. So so I went to the nearest like police station, the Kobuns, and talked to one of the officers, and and he just tells me it's Chico Sekini, and I'm just like, dude, what? Like I just go and I guess this kind of pertains to the whole like. I think in some other AJATT interviews I've seen, like we talk about like the get out of jail free cards that foreigners have, right?
Gaijin card.
If you if you don't know Japanese, you can't like people make exceptions because they know you can't get around by yourself and stuff.
Right.
But like I would go up and I told them like and also there I also heard when I was looking for my bike before I went to the station to get some help. I heard that there was an intruder in the area too.
Oh, wow.
So I'm just like, holy shit! Like I got to get out of here quickly. And it was night. It was nighttime at this point too. And so here I was all alone, and like far away from my hotel. And obviously I was like a ways away from my university too because it was Kyoto, right?
Yeah.
So I'd taken like at least an hour or more worth of a train ride to get there by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was starting to get worried. I'm just like, holy shit! There's like someone in this area right now, apparently, right? Like just like an intruder, and. My bike's somewhere here. I don't know where it is, and if I don't return that soon, I'm gonna have to pay for it and all this stuff. And so I asked the guy for help, and and he literally just tells me like, no, like, you like, we're not gonna help you because you just you put it there. It's your own responsibility. And I'm like, yeah, I get that, but like, I'm a foreigner. I don't know my way around this place, and it's kind of dangerous. And he was just like, I don't care, like when I went abroad. I just I know the rules. I'm just like I can speak Japanese, but it doesn't mean automatically that I know every law of the country or like what pertains to this or that or like how to handle this situation. But he literally was just like, yeah, okay, sorry, we're not going to help you. You're on your own. Go to the store, buy a battery pack, use that to charge your phone and go look for it. Good luck. And then he just sent me off my way. I'm just like, damn,
Yeah.
Like if I didn't know Japanese, like I'm pretty sure he would have helped me,
Yeah, you should have said it in English.
Yeah, you should have dropped the English.
That or if I was a pretty girl, he probably would have made an exception, even if I could speak Japanese. So I was just like, holy shit,
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up having to find it, and luckily I ended up getting it. I don't know how I found my bike. I really don't know how I got it, but I kind of tried to retrace my steps. I don't know how I found it, but yeah, that would have been kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
Again, because I didn't know what kind of intruder it was, could have been a murderer, it could have been just, no, really though, because there was just some person wandering the area that was apparently dangerous or something. There was a whole siren and a warning, and I'm just like, holy shit, I gotta go back in there. Kiyomizu's Dera has a bunch of there's forest around it and stuff like that in that area.
A lot of
I was like, holy shit, I gotta go back there and get my bike.
Oh man.
So yeah.
So I guess speaking to kind of the grind that you did kind of prior to coming to Japan, would you say in kind of the downs it was due to kind of lack of interest of what finding stuff to read like you were saying, or were there maybe other stuff that kind of conflicted with your drive to become native in Japanese?
Right. So I think to be completely vulnerable, my primary source of motivation when I first started this was basically what people refer to as the weeb stuff. You know what I mean? Like the anime, all that stuff. That stuff's somehow captivated me, and I think it really does. When you're very young,
yeah,
it has a certain thing to it, a certain kind of fantasy-based element to it that's very unique. And if you grew up in America, it's unlikely that you've been introduced to it before, or you might have seen it, but it's not really the kind of stuff you see in America, Mm-hmm. So it was kind of when I saw this, I thought it was so mysterious and stuff like that. And I think my primary interest was just that kind of stuff the whole time I studied this. And I think I unknowingly extrapolated all of that interest in the language and stuff like that onto Japan as a country.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically what would happen is that stuff I really liked. I got into some of the best shows and all that stuff too early on. And that was also during my honeymoon phase during Japan. So it was a double high, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was I was just getting started studying the language, which makes you really motivated with all the new content. You're just starting watching this stuff too. And that's when, it has the biggest effect on your brain dopamine wise and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because you're not used to it yet. That all just motivated me for a long time. And I think it's just because I like this one aspect of Japan. I thought no, everything in Japan is so cool. Like this is when I was like 16, so I can't say I was in the right mind, like in my right mind when I was thinking all this stuff. But yeah, like that was the biggest part of it, and also I started getting older over the years, and I started, the amount of pleasure this stuff could give me wasn't exactly as high anymore. Like you keep watching it, especially when you do it at like that kind of, like with that much quantity every day of it going into your face. You eventually start, go from I like this stuff to like holy shit, this stuff is like, I'm so sick and tired of seeing this stuff. And that's what I wanted to talk about as far as balance goes. You know what I mean? I think that if you're like doing it when you want to do it, and you still have to like study really hard to like see yourself progress, but I do believe that, you don't have to take it that far, to the point where you're starting to like, like you're literally just starting to like cut yourself off from people, and you're starting to like turn away from like problems, and you're turning people away from you, and that's basically what happened. So my primary interest was like anime based stuff, and I'm sure a lot of people like who are younger can relate to that. And I think there's this tendency to kind of just extrapolate all of that onto Japan and think like, oh, like this is what it's like over there, And so I just kept like wanting to like, I just really wanted to understand that stuff, and like I just wanted to know more about it. It's not something that I can really like consciously express, but it was just something that kind of hooked me a little bit. It was like a drug, It was like a drug, yeah. Like some people have alcohol, some people have like, psychedelics, and
anime.
and Ben AJATT had Japanese, yeah. So,
oh man.
So yeah, so but then when I started getting older again, like eventually it just starts to kind of fade away, Especially if you've been studying so much, it just becomes normal a little bit. It's kind of like when you buy, I don't know, like a new pair of shoes or something, and like you're really careful not to scratch them for the first few days, but then like as you start to wear them every day, it just becomes normal almost, and like the value kind of goes down over time, and it's also like it also has to do with like that whole aspect of diminishing returns. And I think Matt might have talked about this before, but like in the beginning you make so much progress too, but later it's like you're still nowhere near where you want to be, but also you have to put in more work to get like the same kind of effort, and you're not even seeing necessarily direct evidence that you're getting better, like in the beginning you're learning words that you see all the time, but then later when you start to learn some like words that aren't necessarily so common, like the chances that you'll run into them, you're basically just learning them, and you don't know when or if you're going to see them, but when it's practical stuff, like you just learn a word and you see it somewhere immediately, you're just like, damn, I'm getting better, It's like feedback that makes you feel like, okay, I'm getting somewhere, this isn't all for nothing.
Yeah.
But later you start doing it and it just kind of zombifies you a little bit, because you keep just mining words and like adding them in, and you just keep doing them, but it's like you realize after a while, I'm not using this stuff in everyday speech, I'm just learning them and like kind of hoarding them too, and I'm just doing this like habitually to get better at it, when I'm not really even feeling connected to the stuff I'm doing anymore. So it went from like a hobby that I really loved to something that was kind of destructive, because I felt like I had to keep going.
It became kind of like a chore to you.
Oh yeah, totally. Like so basically, like we talked about how long I'd been doing AJATT for, but in reality, so I did like traditional Japanese study, not counting RTK, for like a year maybe, like using Genki and like pre-made decks and etc. And then starting from 2015 is when I did AJATT. So 2015, like near the end of it, is when I got into it for real. 2 years, I think I would probably comfortably say I was not messing around during those 2 years.
Yeah.
I was actually doing it. And then like 2018, all the way up until mid 2018, I was like really going hard over that summer too. I would try to go to sleep early, get up early, and study all day again. Because part of you also misses when you used to make progress. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're like a retired athlete looking back on your glory days. Like you kind of miss that feeling of making all that progress. So like I wanted to keep that alive too, but I realized it was like becoming more and more forced. If you know what I mean. Like I wasn't feeling the way I used to feel for it. It was more so just, okay, well I've been doing this so long,
Yeah.
It's like sunk cost almost, right? Like, you may not feel like doing it, but you have all this invested already. You might as well just keep going. It's easier to keep going than to stop doing it and wonder what you're going to do next. So
right. So
yeah, but then I started losing. So I basically lost interest in the stuff that was keeping me going, and primarily it was just that as I said, like the weebish stuff, that I was interested in.
Uh-huh.
There were a couple of things I did try to watch, like dramas and things of that nature, but I could never really like get into it. That's what I noticed was kind of strange. I'm like, when I watch this stuff, it makes me feel happy and stuff. But when I watch this stuff, I just feel like disconnected.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
would you say to maybe like people who are starting out to learning Japanese that you'd kind of recommend like don't like just go grind it as hard as possible, kind of like savor the moments and kind of go and really appreciate every big kind of step they take, and like kind of don't just go and find like, for example, every single anime they ever wanted to watch and like knock it out in like a month type of thing, and really just
Oh yeah, going through it in 2 days and stuff like that, just because you want to, know that you're doing like 6 to 7 hours of active stuff a day, stuff like that. No, I would say like, again, I think like I don't know who like I don't know what kind of audience watches the podcast. I think there are a lot of people who study Japanese for a lot of different reasons, right?
yeah.
Like some people like to just do it for fun, and maybe just have tourist experiences. Some people like my past self, we believe we want to go to Japan and just like assimilate into the society and stuff like that, like people who are very like extreme about it too, and just some people who are happy just making progress whenever they can. And I feel like you kind of have to know, like, I guess what you're doing it for too, like or not necessarily know what you're doing it for. I didn't know at the time when I started, but I would say like maybe be like a little bit wary before you decide to throw your entire life into it, because it's kind of like when you start a habit, it's a lot easier to just like the habit is kind of like a trigger, like it's once you've made the habit, your emotions kind of just like draw you back into it. It's not something that you can actively throw away anymore. Like once you've put in a lot of time into it, and I think some people like are getting to that point too, right? There's like a new generation of people who do this every few years for sure. Once you get to that point, it's not so easy just to not do it. Even if you decide like it would be better for you to kind of like cut it out of your life, or at least stop doing it so crazily, it gets to a point where it's hard to control because you put all this stuff into it. You have genuine like good feelings attached to it too, but at the same time, it's not something like that's healthy for you, but you still can't get yourself to stop. So I think that if you like are thinking about starting, and you're kind of thinking about taking it to an extreme, I would be careful about starting that, because once you start it, I think it's kind of hard to stop.
I see.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, great words of advice here coming from Ben. I think over here though is probably a good spot to go and call the podcast. Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on, Ben. It's been really great having you here on the KoreKara Podcast. So we like to do a little thing at the end of our podcast where we kind of have our guests give a message to the listeners. Kind of, it can be anything, it can be kind of like fun little thing to go tell everyone. So Ben, here's the moment. What is your message to the KoreKara listeners today?
Thanks for listening, yeah, and thank you guys for inviting me on. I really appreciate that.
Hope you guys enjoyed that episode with Ben. As always, we have bonus clips on our Patreon, so be sure to check that out. Also, I want to give a shout out to our patrons, Sad Boy, Izenga71, Miku, Jack, Boy No Eyebrow 4, and KH90. So I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.